We're live.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Bitcoin podcast. We are live. We're going to play the intro now.
It's a Bitcoin podcast. The only one that's making your money is you. Listen to the Bitcoin podcast. So hold on and listen to the Bitcoin podcast.
Yo! It's so good. She nodding your head.
Yes, baby.
Yeah.
Z.
Welcome to another episode of the Bitcoin podcast, everyone. This is the first roundtable we've done in some time. We like to give you guys a break from the awesomeness, and that's what we did. We understand you're like, God damn, this is so much awesomeness. I think it's gonna hurt my body, and we understood that you're in that scenario. So we just said, like, we're gonna turn the frequency down a little bit. We're gonna turn it down a notch. Opposite of Emerald, who's usually like, boom, kick it up a notch. Not us.
Who?
Emerald Live, the cook.
Oh,
Emerald
yes.
the chef.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
not
Great
Emerald.
pots. Great pots, by the way. Today's episode is sponsored by Emerald's Pots. No, it's not. All right, so I'm the host. Talk first, D.
I am another host, Dr. Corey Petty.
And I'm the third host, Jessie Broke.
And now we're going to talk about some crypto stuff, right? So can we get the boring stuff out of the way so we can talk about some things that are a bit more interesting?
I'm here for your pleasure. Just
All right.
it's all
For
fun.
your pleasure.
All right. What's that look like to you, Jess?
What are you talking about?
That picture
Oh, it's a
over there.
bear. It's a bear with a salmon. Salmon?
Definitely.
Do you say
Salmon?
salmon?
Salmon. I say
I'm pretty
salmon.
sure it's
I say
salmon.
salmon.
Yeah.
Okay.
The L is silent and the A is kind of not an A. So
No
salmon.
one says salmon.
Salmon.
I think I've said it once or twice.
You should
and
be
then people
sketch.
look
You
at me
should feel
weird.
sketch
Yeah.
about anybody who says salmon.
Speaking of which, Reddit made me stumble upon the milking of a salmon in order to breed, and it's kind of gross. Actually, just kind of squeeze it like they squeeze it like a marker, and they make a big pile of caviar, and then
What does it mean to milk?
they squeeze the bottom of the salmon, and it jizzes all over a big pile of fish eggs, and then they do this with their hand. Literally, they take off the glove to do this. By the way, the glove is on to gather the eggs and to squeeze out the semen. But when they're trying to get that mix, they get hands on. They take off the glove and then they start swirling around eggs and salmon semen, and that's how you.
I don't want an internet like you, internet. I don't want to do that.
I don't want an internet.
Not my fault, bro. It just came into my life, and I was like, you know what? I need to know how this works. How are these salmon just popping up all over the place, right? Can't be Mother Nature.
Are we talking about a bear
So
market?
anyways,
Is that
yeah.
the talking point?
That's what we're supposed to be talking about. So apparently, in the crypto Twitter sphere, there's a bear market going on. We're gonna do what we always do. We don't like talking price because it's like asinine. It's like you're basically talking into a void of infinity for no reason at all. The price goes up, the price goes down. If the fundamentals don't change, why worry? There's nothing that has changed in crypto other than the price went down. So if you're a new time listener listening to this show thinking that we're going to give you hot crypto tips, we're going to give you hot Bitcoin crypto tips, and you can make all the hot juicy money, baby, and drive around in a purple Lamborghini. Ugh. This isn't the show for you. Turn it off.
Yo.
I don't care. I don't care. This is not the show for you. You need to turn it off, or you need to go elsewhere. Ugh. That's how you got it. That's what you say after you say purple Lamborghini. Yeah, that's a Corey. So before, like, Corey, you do some life changes, bro. Like, can that be public knowledge or
Not
Slack
where, but
Slack
yeah.
knowledge? Just tell people what happened in your life.
I sold a house in a span of like 3 weeks. This is my last 3 weeks or so. Maybe even less
Get
than
out
that.
of here.
I drove to North Carolina, shopped for houses, put an offer in.
You just said not where.
And
and then you
okay, the
said
state. You can understand
where.
the state of it, and that's for Wilden. And
Oh,
I'm going to show you
okay.
the address. Shopped for it. I put an offer for a house. It got accepted. Drove back to Maryland, where I live today. Got my house ready for showing. We had 40 showings in the span of 4 days after we just cleaned it and removed everything from it. And then we got 13 offers, accepted an offer. Now I have to move in like a month.
Are
Like,
you
actually,
excited?
assuming that like all of the rigmarole of funding this thing, because the house that I'm buying is substantially more expensive than the one I live in now. So like I have to find all the down payment money for that. If like the revenue from this house doesn't match it, assuming all that goes smoothly, which it should, then I'm moving in a month to North Carolina.
Are you excited?
All while like I'm starting a new position at Status, which got announced yesterday. What is today? Today Wednesday?
Oh,
On Monday.
snaps! I didn't know that was official.
That's officially announced, at least within Status. I am the product owner of the what is currently known, kind of colloquially known as the Status Network. So I will be running all of the like monitoring, or I don't even know how you put it. I'm basically
Sounds like a great job to
cat
have. I don't even
wrangling. I'm cat wrangling all of the various infrastructure products we have at Status to then coalesce into the Status Network.
Cats are easy to wrangle, bro. You got this.
All right, cool.
You want to know the secret to wrangling cats? One word, just one.
Treats.
You already know. Food.
Good enough.
That's all you need. That's all you need is food.
Do
And the
cats
cats
go
go.
for food or catnip?
See,
Like
they go
over
for food
catnip.
over catnip.
I don't know. I've seen some,
I think animal
It's called
tests, they go over the drug before the food.
they get wild on catnip.
Yeah.
I don't think you want a whole cat team on catnip, bro.
No, I ain't trying to wrangle that.
Anyways, congratulations to
There's
the
a lot of
immediate
life
change
moves
in
all
your
at
life.
once.
Yeah. So my hat's off to you. I know it's a lot going on. You take stress like a champ. So let's get into the greater world in crypto. And like, I don't know. I was having this conversation with a close friend of mine last weekend, and that crypto right now, and I don't see in the foreseeable future this ever changing, is a lot of high dollar makeup on a dried out turd. And what I mean by that is like most of these NFT, I see a different NFT project every day because I happen to follow @NFT on Instagram, which is a great Instagram account for what it's designed for. But there's a different 10,000. There's like several different 10,000s, which are called the NFT projects, where there's 10,000 items every single day. And they all are the same thing, be a part of the Billionaire Alien Society, the Billionaire Bulls Club, the Billionaire Bears Club. It's like, it's silly to me.
Is there a list of 10K projects? Like, is there like a repo that tracks 10Ks?
I don't know, man.
I'm sure Q would know that. So the NFT show on the network, they do all NFT stuff, and they don't really follow
10K
10Ks
projects.
or 5Ks or whatever the other standard issue NFT project is. They don't really follow it much, but they might know of like tracking stuff. So like, are people buying all of them? Like, are they all getting participation?
It depends.
Exactly.
How cheap it is, and it depends how much marketing was involved.
So it's like,
How many?
it's worse than like 2017 ICOs, right? Because like in 2017 ICOs, the early ones all had massive attention, all of them, because there wasn't enough things happening for all of the collective attention on Ethereum at that time. Then this like massive boom of ICOs happened, and there's this lull of like, oh, we can't get attention, no one participated in the ICO because there's too many of them.
Yeah.
And so what happened was a massive influx of ridiculous marketing to garner the attention so that the project could then make some money or like have a successful ICO, whatever you want to call it. But there wasn't anything after that. It was just a bunch of marketing, successful ICO, and then a bust because no one knew what they were doing. Is it like that?
I think the difference is from me reading a bunch of VC investment theses on the space. Gaming is a huge thing that's being created as a result of the NFT market, right? ICO boom didn't result in any specific industry taking the tokens and actually creating something that people
there wasn't
can
a
use
lot of
with
use for a long time, and still isn't. Based on
NFTs in gaming are like your foot in your sock. They go together.
Yeah. They
Are
do.
there games? Are there any good games? Like
I've
seen a couple like 16 gig garbage in your web browser, but like anything I want to play?
Not yet.
They're
Soon?
gonna come. They're coming around the corner.
I've seen like, what is it? Axie Infinity was a really popular one.
Yeah, I think
Is that a
into
10K project? Is that just like play to earn?
I'm not sure. Like 10K being the quantity being 10K. I don't think it's capped at 10K because you can breed, right? So no.
They call them 10K projects, I think, because they start with 10K and then things can get wild from there.
It's like the initial distribution is 10K unique assets, and then from there it's whatever unique dynamics they come up with to try and differentiate themselves.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Maybe.
Yeah, no,
or just
the supply doesn't matter. The supply typically
well, like it does, because that's
it's
scarcity.
neat. I think
that's where you come up with a floor, and
I want to take
scarcity
my words
is an
back.
illusion, Corey. if they want to make more NFTs, like sub NFTs of those NFTs, like look at CryptoKitties, right?
Well, of course they could.
It might have been initially
built in.
10,000.
It has to be built in.
Does it though?
I mean, you could make derivative things, but like I know a lot of the projects are like, hey, these in order to get access to the derivative projects later on down the line, you need one of the original 10K.
I wouldn't say scarcity is an illusion.
That's how Axie Infinity exists.
Scarcity is dependent upon the relation, right? Scarcity is dependent upon how you define it, and like I wouldn't say it's an illusion.
No, it's not.
No, it is.
There's a set number of things.
Is gold scarce?
Yes.
Okay, well now it's already proved there's like infinity gold flying around this here solar system.
That's
right, and they're already actively trying to make plans to go mine it.
It's about circulation.
Is gold scarce?
It's about what's currently accessible in the marketplace, and then future inflation based on what could be accessed and entered into the market later on down the line changes that dynamic, right?
That's what you're just
scarcity is what is currently available to you, and with NFTs, it's known. Hopefully, you know what the future is, so you can predict accordingly. But that's not necessarily guaranteed either.
I think that yes, I think scarcity has soft and hard definitions, caveats. Gold being one of them. Obviously, there's only so much gold we can get here onto Earth. But NASA's already like, yo, we going to the asteroids. We're getting that gold, baby. And I'm pretty sure that is exactly how the board meeting went.
I want to know where the gold's at. I'm going to get this back, though.
Some side just came in is like, well, there's provable gold on these asteroids. And then somebody said, we getting that gold, baby. And then that's it. That's how that meeting went. There was no more memos. And now we're trying to
have that gift queued up. I want to know where the gold at.
That leprechaun
gift?
I want to know where the gold at. So anyways, so I guess I shouldn't say that it's a turd in pretty makeup, a dried shit turd. It is like more like
wait, what was the turd? I
NFT projects in general.
No, I guess chickens.
I think I have a lot.
The podcast Slack. I have an town on these Avalanche chickens.
There's a large amount of chicken in the Bitcoin podcast Slack right now. And I'm not gonna lie to you.
There's probably like a close to 200 to 300 chickens bought just for the TVP podcast Slack.
Have you not seen these chickens, Jesse? Have you not seen them?
I followed you with you guys.
Fucking great,
I didn't buy any because like I know what they are.
Dude,
you know?
Chickens are about to lay eggs.
You're a fail, bro.
The chickens lay eggs. You swap the egg for feed. You feed your chickens, they get fat. They lay bigger eggs. Boom. Guess what happens, Jesse? We're thinking long term, baby. These eggs get minted.
I know that's your first NFT that does that, but like I've seen that. And like, Solana is the biggest chain for NFTs, right?
Is it?
So, like I've seen that. Yeah.
How do you know that?
That's why you can look at the marketplace of like the churn, the volume being paid in dollars, churning NFTs is much higher than in any other.
This is very true.
That's why people go to Solana to launch their NFT to capture that. Yeah,
right. And then
it gets stopped, and then it doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. That's the problem. Solana it's got
problems.
Piece
of garbage.
It's got problems.
Yeah. For those that didn't know, who's listening to this podcast, the Solana blockchain has yet again stopped. I don't know if it's back on yet, but they're talking about rebooting it.
Yeah.
Dude,
do you know if the reboot has to do with they take the state at which it stopped and start over from there, so you lose all provenance, or they just start fresh the whole damn thing? Or
I don't know.
I don't know. Like,
I see the coordination though, like in the Discord channel, specific to like, let's start it up, guys. Like, let's start it up again.
To me, it's just like I just want to reach amount of time in crypto and a level of expertise where I don't have to explain myself. Like I was talking to a group of friends not last weekend, about Solana, and I was like, yeah, it's a dumpster fire, it's a bucket of trash. And they were like, well, why? And I was
exactly.
Yes, I always get asked that question. I'm like, fuck, man, I don't want to pull out the white papers, but this shit's broken. It's not working.
You have to, though. You have to. In order to be able to answer that why question, you need to.
I know it sucks. but
Yeah.
it's silly. It's just like it's not working. If I can ping the crowd and the crowd is like this shit's broken and not working, and then I look and I see no transactions coming through. That's all I need. Like, yeah, it's broke. Look, these other ones.
I mean, I
aren't broke.
agree.
This one broke.
From a
But-
usability standpoint, like you want an L1 that is cheap, is consistently online, and fast. I think that's all
So
anybody
you
cares.
value liveness over safety.
No, I think people value. I think both can be done, right? Like
Man.
the system can gracefully turn off when it's being attacked and gracefully come back on, right? And that
So,
gracefully in
Your
quotes-
idea of what Solana is doing is not a graceful lack of liveness,
right? Okay, I see where you're taking me. Yeah,
right?
So
There's
they're
like, if you look
sacrificing-
at something like Avalanche, they value safety over liveness. So in the event that something
Mhm.
bad happens, the blockchain shuts down, but nothing is lost.
right.
And for something like proof of work chains, it values availability to liveness, right? And so it
Mhm.
basically like the chain won't stop ever, but
Mhm.
like, there needs to be one validator going. So the security
Yeah.
drops significantly, but the blockchain keeps continuing. So there's
Yeah.
like a lot of trade-offs with the consensus associated with how these blockchains get built. And applications should, I think over time, people will start to then understand which blockchain is appropriate for specific types of applications. And in some of them, it doesn't really matter. But for some of them, it may. And that's
Yeah.
going to be kind of like, in the event of something going wrong, what happens? Do I need to continue no matter what, or do I need it to be sure that the data never gets lost, or the data is always available? Things like this. So
Yeah.
I think we're just now getting to the point where we have enough variability in the way to make these things, and we're exploring in different ways and how to maybe parameterize them or change things dynamically, that blockchains can actually differentiate themselves. Because right now, to the average customer, they just hear the word blockchain,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, it's an NFT, which happens to live on a blockchain, which means nothing to me. It's a place where expensive things live.
I'm buying Vin Diesel's NFTs day one.
I don't even know what that
Doesn't
is for.
matter.
I don't know.
I don't even care.
Are they angels? I hope they're angels.
I really hope they're angels. I hope they're Vin Diesel's angels.
Did he say he's
I'm
doing
buying.
something, or you just make that up?
Dude, he has to be. He's got so many teams. One of those teams is like, oh
The
my
answer is
god,
he's making it up.
the baby did an NFT project. We got to get Vin Diesel on this. Let's see if we can talk to the Vin real quick. Let's schedule a meeting next
So
week.
then,
All right. He's like, hey guys, how's it going? And then they're like, we're gonna give you an NFT. He's like, angels, I'm with it. And that's it. I'm on the Fast and
does
Furious.
he exhibit? Get a better accent.
That's how he sounds to most people. Anyways, let's get on
So
to the task guy.
Can
So-
we? If
You want to talk
Can I-
about
can I
some
ask a
heavy
question?
shit, Jesse?
yeah, I
but
want
you
to talk
can
about
ask
some
a
heavy
question.
shit.
You ask a question. Ask your question first before you get into heavy shit. And like, I need time to think about this. I gotta put my thinking cap on for these questions you're about to throw out.
Well, so I wrote some questions in our production channel before this went live, and I have questions about. I'm gonna skip over some of them, but can you discuss like the time to finality differences and variations of proof of stake consensus mechanisms?
Sure.
So let's overview like what are off the shelf proof of stake mechanisms available.
I guess you should probably first ask what finality is.
Yeah, let's do that.
So when you say what is like finality for a transaction,
Mhm.
what that's asking is when I submit a transaction and it enters the blockchain, it's included somehow or another by a validator or miner into a blockchain or data structure that becomes available for other people to see or whatever.
Right.
Like how long until its inclusion is it to be final?
Is it
Meaning that, like,
irreversible?
I have strong confidence that it will not be changed again.
Right.
Proof of work. This is what the confirmation time typically is for a blockchain, for a proof of work blockchain like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And because they're these algorithms
Mhm.
are probabilistic in nature,
Yeah.
meaning that the odds of things being changed is a probability, which gets less and less and less over time. So as your chain gets further and further and further in the blockchain that it's built on, so like say it's like 5 blocks deep, there's been 5 blocks.
You have higher security assurances.
You have more and more assurances that from the tip of the chain to where your chain is won't get reverted. More and more and more confidence based on the amount of work gone into the blocks that are pushed above yours.
I have
So-
a quick question. Just want to
Yeah.
interject. Why is Bitcoin's like finality by exchanges 6 blocks? Like, what does that mean in terms of what's the probability of reversion at 6
getting there.
blocks?
So what that
Okay.
means is, so like every multiple times, maybe even a day, the network is so large of people mining within Bitcoin. We'll just talk about Bitcoin for a hot second.
Mm.
A block time is 10 minutes. Okay.
Yep.
So
It's like
every
9
10 minutes, there's a new block.
Yeah.
So every day, because the network of miners is so large, there are
Yeah.
probably multiple times a day in which 2 people across the network find a new block at the exact same time. Meaning that a miner A in China finds a block and they gather the transactions they think are appropriate for that miner, and they add it to the block. They submit their proof of work, and then they broadcast it to the network. And at the exact same time that happens, somewhere in the United States or anywhere else, just like across the world, right? Someone finds another block. They choose their transactions from that pool and submit it to the blockchain with a proof of work. Both of those blocks are viable. So what happens is you have this contention over which chain is the right chain across the network based on how fast those 2 blocks propagate across the entire Bitcoin network. Because if the first person, a miner who is not those 2, whichever block they receive first that has valid proof of work, they'll say this is the right one, and they'll start building on that for the next. So there's a contention on which one, and probabilistically, the bifurcation of the network, someone will find a block on that one before on one of those chains before. Like I want to say, there won't be 2 people finding a valid block on both of those contended chains, and that gets exponentially more probable over time. So for a little while, the network is in somewhat of a flux where the next block found dictates what's the canonical blockchain. So let's say, for instance, block A, the one from China.
Yeah.
Someone else receives that one, starts building, and they find a block that gets added to that one. That what happens is they submit that block to the network, and no one else finds anything else. The entire network throws away whatever they had, whether it be the previous valid block that was true or the one from China, and they build onto that one instead. Because the canonical rule in Bitcoin is the longest chain wins.
Right.
The moment that second block gets found, that's now the longest chain. Everything else is thrown away. So that's your probability of a reorganization, because what happens is if you're on that other chain, if your transaction was in that one but not in the China chain, then it gets reorganized. It's no longer where you thought it was within the chain. It may be in the block, but it may be a different one, so on and so forth. There may be minor changes, or it doesn't get included at all, depending on what the miner chose to put in who submitted the blocks. So as time goes on, you have more and more and more confidence that won't happen, because the odds of a 6-block deep reorg is incredibly small. And so what you do is you just wait. So like, okay, by the time I'm 6 blocks deep within the Bitcoin blockchain, that's far enough for me to be very, 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 very confident that it will not be reorganized. So I can consider it final.
So what is the probability though? Like
I don't know
number
off the top of my
wise?
head. It's huge.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not. It's a never gonna happen probability.
It's
I mean,
what?
Yeah, it's up there.
it depends, right? So like the odds of that happening is dictated by the distribution of mining power across, right? So like say for instance, there is a 51% attack, or
Yeah.
a larger, like say 75% of the hash power is owned by a single mining pool. There's a much larger chance that can happen because there's collusion within that single mining pool to withhold blocks for a long period of time. And then say, well, we have a launch chain, here you go.
Mhm.
And so there's some odd attacks that get more and more likely if a large distribution of the network has control over the mining power. If mining power is heavily differentiated across a bunch of different people, that's never going to happen.
Right.
So that's proof of work. Now, Ethereum is a bit different because the block time is smaller, and they have a different process with uncles and these things like that. But for all intents and purposes,
Uncles are the equivalent of orphan blocks, right?
yeah, they're orphan blocks, but you still get a reward if they're referenced through the mechanism in which Ethereum does proof of work, which is
Oh,
slightly
I didn't
different.
know that they get rewards still.
Yeah, they can get partial awards for doing good work. So that's
Okay.
kind of the differentiation for Ethereum, because they reduce the block times so small. You increase the number of times this happened, meaning that there's a lot of like unused work. So they built in an incentive mechanism for people to sometimes get rewarded for blocks that got thrown away. Okay, so that's proof of work, and that's the probability of that type of thing. That's why you need, what is it, like 12 confirmations or more for Ethereum, because the block time is smaller. It takes longer to get deep enough in the chain to be confident that things aren't going to get reorganized. And that's also a metric of what the hash power is, right? And so if the hash power is small, doing a large block reorg isn't that big of a deal, because you can just find blocks really quickly.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of weird dynamics that go into how proof of work and the probability of finality changes over time.
See, the
Now,
assumption is that like two block producers won't produce the newest block at the same time and keep producing new blocks at the same rate, because then you'd have like
two parallel
you'd have
blockchains
a
going.
fork, right?
You'd
It's a
have a
temporary
fork
fork.
and two parallel blockchains going, and that assumption is proved by 10 years worth of computation. So I don't think it's
No,
any
that's-
longer an
that's-
assumption.
So it's based on the probability that you won't have two blocks producing new blocks at the same rate then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
then you
like
got
that
Bitcoin
actually
Cash.
happens sometimes too. You can have the same point where you have like that temporary fork lasts for more than one block.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
But it
not-
closes after like 6 at
and
least.
so, but the probability that you go to 3 and then 4,
Yeah.
it gets exponentially more unlikely.
Right.
And so the deeper you go, the less, like, exponentially less likely it is to happen. Eventually, you'll coalesce onto one of those chains because someone finds a block before the other chain, and everyone throws away the rest of the work.
Gotcha.
Because the canonical rule, the number one rule of proof of work, is longest chain wins, or heaviest chain wins. It's the length plus the amount of work that went into each block.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So
It's not longest chain. It's actually
Yeah,
heaviest
it's just
chain.
the easier way to say that is the longest chain, because you assume that each chain has the same weight, but it's not always the case.
Interesting.
So if we back that all the way out into GPP speak, for the new people listening, which is a good amount of you, every 10 minutes, this is for Bitcoin only, every 10 minutes, there's a giant gaggle of computers racing. They're running as hard as they can, right? And one of them's going to win. All right, this is really distilling a lot of shit down. One of them's going to win, right? And they get to decide what the blockchain looks like when they win.
For that 10 minutes.
For that 10 minutes. The next 10 minutes, another computer is going to win, and they get to decide what the blockchain looks like, right?
For that 10 minutes.
It's extremely hard for a set of computers to go 6 blocks deep and do that much calculation to reorganize that entire chain, right? They're going to
It's
be
6 blocks. It has, forget this. Like
6
it's
races
6 blocks deep.
Yeah,
That's different from what's currently happening.
yeah. They're working in a totally
It's
different
much easier
reality.
with a visualization, but it's not only do they have to.
We can do a visualization.
What?
We can do a
What are you gonna do?
visualization.
You're gonna sketch it?
I can't wait to
No.
get my whiteboard. Let me get a
There's
freaking whiteboard.
if you go to andersbrownworth.com/blockchain. Here, I'll link it in here.
I think you internet harder than I do because I watch
Here you go.
salmon
linked it in the
farming.
private
Oh
chat.
yeah, the blockchain demo. It's so good.
Yeah. So somebody can like bring that up on screen for the people
Yeah,
who
but
are
there's
watching
the
it on
forking
YouTube.
of this. I don't think works.
Yeah, it doesn't quite, but it can kind of
I
give you
can't
a
see. Yeah,
basic
there's no
visual.
fork situation here where I can show 2 different competing chains.
Yeah.
That would be good. Now that website is really good for teaching people the basics of like how transactions enter blocks, how block like a blockchain, how proof of work works, etc. But like,
Yeah.
here's someone said share link worth.
We want
just
more
put it
details, better simulations.
I got you, Boo, on what is that on YouTube?
Sick.
There you go, Luciano. So that's proof of work. So you have a probability of finality.
Mhm.
So we just made up the concept of
So
6 blocks deep is good enough. But if you're buying a cup of coffee, you don't really care if it gets reorg. You don't wait. You do a zero conf kind of simulate transaction that gets included a block. Cool, that's good enough. I'll walk away. If you're buying a house, maybe you wait 6, maybe you wait 12, right? So
Right.
like it's the finality is a function of how deep in the blockchain it is for proof of work chains.
Yeah.
Got
With
it.
proof of stake, that's not the case.
My
Well,
question that I submit inside of Jesse's question is, why is actual finality better than the perception of finality?
I don't know what you mean.
They're all
we live it every day. What do you mean? You
There's
don't?
there's no real like zero.
I just went to the grocery store and I swiped my debit card to buy some food. That transaction is not going to be final until Friday. On the very, very back, on the very, very most important ledger that my bank holds, that transaction is not going to be final until Friday. Right now, it's shooting through everybody's ledgers, shooting through fucking, I don't know, Plaid, somebody else, some other stupid little thing, all the little mediators in between me swiping my debit card and it hitting my bank account. But in my eyes, if I look on my app and I see available balance, I've already reflected. But that's not final. The money hasn't moved. The money has not moved from my bank to Kroger.
What's
So
your question?
again?
My question is, why is finality so important in the first place? Why do people care if they already live and operate under
Gives you a
the
trustless
perception of
guarantee
finality?
It
in
has
the
to do
system that
with
you're transacting
the
value in.
arbitration of transactions that don't finalize and get charged back or changed.
Mhm. So like
So-
you're not relying on
So
a mediator for
As a
settlement.
merchant, if someone comes into my store and buys something and walks away with it, and then they dispute that transaction at their bank and get their money back, I
But
don't
you
have
don't
much
get your
recourse.
product. Yeah.
60 days afterwards. Also, it has to do with my accounting as a business. I can't settle or understand how much money I actually have until 60, 30 days after someone makes purchases. So I have to keep all of this in mind based on the possibility that something changes over time. Finality matters. And I would argue the time gap between perceived finality and actual finality is, the larger that is, the worse it is, because it really gives the possibility of introducing problems in accounting for money and malfeasance, or I can't predict the future as well if I don't know what's going to happen with a longer and longer time frame. And I don't have to trust someone for shorter finality, then things can move much quicker and more dynamically, because you can predict in the future much better, more accurately and faster if you have very short finality. But blockchains, finality is when the transaction is final and nothing more, which is a really nice thing. And also automated. You can automate it.
That's the answer I was looking for, and more of an opening to see like why people, what the value proposition of blockchain is, because a lot of people they're still not gonna see that. We can fast forward the clock 20 years from now. We're old and gray, and for still some reason making the Bitcoin podcast, knowing that
more often than not, that's the term they use in the financial world, settlement.
Trustless
When
settlement,
both
that's
parties
why
walk
I
away
understand.
feeling as though nothing can change again.
trustless
In
settlement.
blockchain world or database transactions, it's finality. So like we only talk about proof of, when you talk about, I would say there's two now that Avalanche exists.
Mhm.
There are arguably IOTA, but we're not going to go there. There are two different versions of consensus in the realm of proof of stake. Right. So when I say proof of work, we're talking about Nakamoto. Everyone plays a giant Sudoku to win a chance at submitting the next block. So becoming the leader so they can submit the next block. Proof of stake is basically a bunch of computers who know each other. Well, one version of it, practical Byzantine fault-tolerant algorithms. There's a bunch of computers who know each other who deterministically elect leaders. So like, all right, us three are working in this thing. D, it's your turn to submit a block. You collect the transactions. You submit a candidate block. We look at it, verify it, pass it around. And there's these rounds associated with how quickly can all three of us come to consensus on, or can a portion of us come to consensus on this is the correct block so we can move forward. In those types of algorithms, the moment a block is submitted, it is final, because you cannot roll back. You can't roll a block back. there's no probability associated with how deep in the blockchain is it. Because of the nature of how these algorithms work, it's final the moment it's submitted and confirmed.
Yeah, but
That's why
that takes time though. Like that's where we have to talk about latency, no? In terms of like
so that's
messaging.
dictated by how fast you can perform those round of protocols, which is governed by how many validators they are, because you need to understand who everyone is, and it's all-to-all communication, meaning that like everyone has to talk to everybody else or close to that in multiple rounds. So that has a lot of bandwidth overhead and things like that, which is why they can only usually go up to like 100 validators. Otherwise, you start having way too many messages trying to be passed around in a small amount of network time, which is why you can only go to like 5 seconds, 12 seconds. It takes that long just to pass all those messages around across all the validators so that everyone can say, yep, that's right.
Yeah.
And then that's submitted, but there's no rollback. It's final. And then
Avalanche is like, what is it? Like the number of nodes times, it's log the fan out. It's the number of nodes log the fan out, right?
Off the top of my head, I have to look back. Okay. But it's so like what I said about the PBFT algorithms, everyone has to talk to everybody, and how that latency scales with the number of validators participating. So that's why it's capped at around 100. Once you go past that, you get degradation because it takes longer and longer and longer to come to consensus because you're asking more and more people. And that the number of messages scales exponentially because that's how that works. So Avalanche does it differently by every individual in the validator pool doesn't ask everyone. They ask a random sample of everyone. They do that multiple times. So the number of messages that a given validator has to do for any given decision is constant. So the number of validators can be as many as you want. It doesn't matter because the number of messages that any individual validator has to ask is constant because it's always a random sample of the entire pool.
See, I have questions with like how VRF sampling works in Algorand because they use random sampling of subcommittees.
I don't know. It's like there's some differences there that become more difficult with like that's like these what is this? Not their what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, they take slices of it and form almost like subgroups that then hierarchically move to a larger group. So like you take a subgroup, they come to consensus. Those subgroups then come to a larger group, and that then coalesces to like the entire group agrees on one thing. And that's a bit odder. So like I think Ripple does something like this, the way Ripple works, and the flavors of Ripple-like consensus. And so does maybe Definity. I'm not quite sure, but like there's all these like variations that are essentially attempts to get around the concept of PBFT algorithms being limited at 100. And I forgot the name of like what they call groups in consensus off the top of my head.
Okay. This is I would like to like learn more about what you know and like read more about this stuff.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. There's so many options on the back end of this tech that
think about that, right?
No, I just want to understand why 100 is the cap of validator nodes for
message
complexity. I think it's physical time.
That's what I want to see. I want to see like how the math works out. Why
it's message complexity over time. So like how fast you can propagate that many messages to that many people in a specific amount of time.
So if that's dependent upon, is that dependent upon the physical like bandwidth? Yeah. Like if bandwidth increases, then your message propagation goes.
It's network latency across a global network.
So if there's more nodes, then you can pass more messages faster. Or you gotta have
there's more nodes, you pass more messages because it's all to all. When I say all to all communication, that means say if there's 5 people, each node has to send everybody 4 messages.
Got it.
So the number of messages grows exponentially as you go as you increase another one. It's a combinatorial problem, right? How many ways can you connect a specific number of people?
2 to the it's not
in factorial.
In factorial.
Usually.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have 30, then 30 factorial.
There might be some changes there based on like
that's not a large.
Yeah, so that's the issue there, right? Is that once you get to a certain number of people, it's no longer feasible to send that many messages in a specific amount of time because it's too many messages.
So can I like numbers wise, because I like looking at like examples. So if we're talking about the validator node count is limited to 100, So is that 100 factorial is the amount of messages, or is the amount of messages in total that need to be settled before like a block is considered final?
It depends on the algorithm, because like that's why when they like people like Cosmos or Tendermint, which
Yeah.
runs Cosmos, their
Yeah.
improvements are trying to figure out how they can piggyback the necessary information within a single message, or change the way the gossip protocol works. The gossip protocol is basically like the network layer below of like how these nodes are actually interconnected and send messages to each other, how messages propagate across the network, such that if I'm sending a message to people that are 2 nodes away from me, how can the people in the middle extract as much information as they can to come to a decision early too? And so like there's all these optimizations you can try and do to get around the like message complexity latency of propagating messages across the network. Or like how can we change the algorithm such that any given node comes to the right amount of information for consensus faster? And that's mostly what they're trying to do.
So
But
how
at the end of the day,
yeah,
if it's all-to-all communication and there are rounds to this, then you still have to pass a certain amount of messages, which can only happen within a certain amount of time.
Right. And that's again limited by your bandwidth. Like, so like if you're running on a fiber connection at 1 gigabits per second, then you do the math, I guess, in terms of like 100 factorial messages need to be settled between 100 nodes. And then I don't know like what that turns out to be in terms of like,
That's why,
bytes
like,
per information.
These systems have a high operational cost for validators, because you need not only you need a very good level of internet, high bandwidth, low latency.
The CPU is the bottleneck.
A tremendous amount of uptime requirements, because if you're on the network, people don't know who you are, and you have to participate in consensus. It's not like I can hang out for a little while and people will ignore me. That's why you get slashed. And then there's like just a lot of IO, because you have to reference what you've already done for each individual message to come to like a larger group. So also you have to verify. There's a lot of computational costs, because you're doing a lot of signature validation for all these messages to guarantee that the message you got came from who you think it did.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of complexity involved with doing these algorithms incredibly fast. That limits how fast you can come to a decision, and that scales with how many people are involved with coming to a decision.
Right. So
that's
rather
the beauty of Avalanche, is that it doesn't require everybody, and that's the real key there that I don't think people understand. Right,
because it's not n factorial. It's I think what it's like. For instance, if they're
depends on it. So that's what's nice about the underlying protocol itself, not necessarily
it can be adjusted. Yeah,
that's a parameterizable. There's a few parameters you can change based on what type of security, availability, like latency you want in your network. And so you can change how many people do I query every single time, how many iterations of queries do I do, and things like that, to then tune it to the performance level that you want.
Right.
Based on how big you think your network's going to go, or like what type of property you want the data on your blockchain actually. And I think that's really important. And also the key point is there, the amount of messages that a given validator has for any given decision is not tied to the number of validators in the pool.
Wait, can you repeat that one more time?
So like, say for instance,
no, you could just repeat the same thing that you just said.
Yeah, the amount of work that a given validator has to do for any given decision is constant with the size of the network.
Okay.
Meaning that the number of validators in the pool can grow to thousands. Full validators. The work associated with any one of those validators is the same, regardless of going from 20 to 1,000.
Okay, yeah, we're talking about full versus archival. That's the distinction you're making.
No, I'm talking about any given round of a decision. Say, for instance, if we're talking about proof of stake for these PBFT algorithms, the amount of messages that is passed for a pool of validators of 20. So that's all-to-all communication. A validator has to talk to 20 people. So all those messages have to get passed multiple times for every 20 people in order for any given decision to happen on the network.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the entire network coming to a decision. If you grow that to 1,000, that means any validator has to talk to 1,000 people multiple times.
Yeah.
And you have to wait for all of those people to do that before any given decision takes place. Yeah. Because it's all-to-all communication.
I'm with it.
right? And so that latency and complexity and the number of messages that need to be passed overall for any given decision grows exponentially with the size of the network.
Yeah.
Avalanche says we sample, like, say for instance, there's a pool of 1,000 validators.
Yeah, it's not all to all.
We
It's like
iteratively sample
one
20.
to nearby.
We don't care how big the network is as long as it's bigger than 20.
Mhm.
Now, there's some small subtleties there. You want a sufficiently large network that your sample is random.
Mhm.
Because if you sample 20, you're doing all-to-all communication, then you have strong finality, but you don't have any type of like randomness associated with it.
Mm. And the randomness is important because of
It has to do with something like the mid-value theorem,
decentralization.
right? So like for central limit theorem, it's basically like an average of averages. So I've tried to explain it this way beforehand, and I think it's one of the better ways to get an intuition on why this protocol works
Mhm.
versus like why you can take a subsample multiple times of a network and it come to
Mhm.
the right answer globally.
Mhm.
Is, say for instance, this is the standard statistical method for coming to averages of large numbers. Is I have this bucket, massive bucket, millions, billions of numbers, and I want to know the average of all the numbers in my bucket.
Mhm.
It's going to take a long time for me to computationally add up all of the numbers and then divide it by the number of numbers to get the average.
Yeah.
Instead, statistically, what I can do is I take a random sample of the numbers of like, say, 20 numbers in that bucket a bunch of times. And I take the average of those numbers. The average of averages, if I do that a bunch of times, that number will then monotonically converge to the actual average of the total thing.
Gotcha.
And so you can
I love
parameterize that
math
by how many
proofs.
times I sample it, right? So like
I'm
this
sure
is
there's a beautiful proof proving that
What?
this is. I'm sure that there's a proof behind.
Oh yeah, 100%. This is the like it's one of the most valuable things in data science is your ability to do this for big data, right?
Yeah.
That's how we can do a lot of big data calculations, is your ability to randomly sample, do this iteratively, and then coalesce to the right number.
Okay.
And so that's basically the gist of how Avalanche consensus works for a large number of validators. The central limit, I think, Luciano. I can look
So let me ask this question. I thought that or let me ask this question. How does weight of staked amount of Avalanche tokens matter to consensus? Because it is quote unquote leaderless, but is it really leaderless if, I guess, like if there's a weighted stake in terms of, like, if somebody has, like, I don't know, way more algo than another node who's being queried for its average, won't that average have more significance? And won't, like, I guess, isn't that in some ways leader? Isn't that like a leader?
I'm sorry, what? I missed that when I looked up. I was answering a message in the chat.
You're good. So I'm just wondering, like, when something is leaderless versus has a leader,
Okay.
and Avalanche, there's the consensus mechanism takes into account staked weight, right?
Yeah.
So how, if somebody has like a disproportionately large amount of Avalanche tokens staked on their validator, how is that not a leader?
No, it's not a leader because they're not the person submitting something to be verified. So
Okay.
it is not like they're not batching stuff and then submitting it for verification. They're just So the way the staked weight works in an Avalanche-like protocol is they're just asked more.
Okay.
So the odds that you're queried for any given decision are improved by your stake in the network. So that means that these people get queried and they participate in queries much more often. Gotcha. Because of their associated weight in the network. A leader is electing someone to gather the transactions that need to be verified, batch them, and submit them to the network.
Gotcha. So it's a definition error on my part that I don't know the difference between a leader.
So Avalanche, in its best form, is leaderless, and that you don't need anyone to submit something to be validated, and you're not trying to elect that leader in some process. Both proof of work. So like winning proof of work is leader selection. So the moment someone solves that giant complex Sudoku of proof of work, submits to the network, they get to be the leader because that they've submitted a proof of work that dictates that they won the round. They get a submit. Get two tokens.
Everybody has to validate
PBFT,
it,
the leader is deterministically elected through some algorithm. Basically, it's these turns and slots depending on which flavor you're using. So you know who the leader is going to be, and that person submits it. Everyone else checks it, and that pushes forward.
But that I think that's the part where I think Algorand differs, right? You're saying that it is
the VRF is the source of randomness. So the VRF is the source of randomness that chooses the leader.
But it's not deterministic. Well, I guess it's pseudo-random, but
it's deterministic, but the randomness determines it.
Oh, okay, I get
As far as I know, but yes, there's still a leader involved in this. They're still doing PBFT. It's just they have a very good source of randomness, which seeds who the leader is, so you can't collude beforehand.
Right.
So, like, for instance, if you knew who the leader's going to be, then there's a level of collusion you can do to pray.
Like in Solana.
What are you doing over there, D?
I'm not doing a damn thing. I'm just listening.
Your dog's all over.
Oh, that's my dog. He likes to go in and out of his kennel sometimes. Like that's just. I didn't know that. I didn't know y'all were picking that up. Hey man, could you stop fucking around?
An important distinction there. When we're talking about Avalanche, is it's like by nature leaderless. So that's X and P chain. But since the C chain is a fork of the EVM, it is a leader protocol. Leader-based protocol. So they basically had to add additional constraints on who gets to be a leader within this group of people, within all the groups of people, which is called Snowman++. So they've had to kind of constrain it additionally to figure out who's a leader, so that you don't have more often of a chance for I guess they call it a conflict set. So basically, two transactions that are on conflict, because the EVM is a fully synchronous blockchain. It needs to be totally ordered. So you need someone to propose who's going to be a block. They've kind of come up with a new way to figure out how you go from this leaderless-based protocol of the network to find a leader reasonably well to then push the blockchain forward in a way that isn't going to have contention. So there's just
that's the paper that
consensus is a huge area of research, and it's growing and growing and growing because it's relatively.
Yeah. I was listening to Goon talk about his consensus algorithm, Avalanche, the Snow protocol stuff, but then he was describing the classical consensus algorithms and then the Byzantine, the BFT ones.
Fascinating. I love it. It's part of my favorite. That's why I got into it, was how Bitcoin did this, and then brought me on to traditionally how it was done, and then how basically these networks were adding incentives. Basically, they started adding tokens and incentives for proof of stake to then slightly modify traditional distributed consensus algorithms to then work in the context of a blockchain. And then Avalanche joined the scene to do something completely differently. And then all of these different ways of trying to optimize things for a specific type of guarantee within the trilemma, right? And so it's a massive area of research, and we have a lot of room to discover more stuff.
Yeah, dope. Everybody's optimizing for something. It'd just be nice if somebody kind of crunch the numbers to say, okay, this is what they're optimizing for in terms of use case. Yeah,
an objective differentiation across all of them without having to be this bag holder mentality of I'll just do the best. So
yeah, that'd be great.
Good luck.
Another diamond idea from the Bitcoin podcast. If anybody wants to do that.
Also, it's the amount of effort and work it takes to get there is substantial. And in the road to get there, you then learn you can make a bunch of money by developing these things instead of publishing more about it. And that's what happens. You rip people from just pure academia into a developer or new chain, and they become wealthy because it's so frothy. I'm hoping in the future this industry isn't as hyperbolic in attention as it is today, so that you have more objectivity in the new stuff coming out, and not so much infighting and competition when something gets released.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Like,
man. I enjoy the
yeah.
hyperbole.
I don't.
I enjoy the hyperbole because it's
talking about
what
hyperbolic
keeps the
functions.
space going. It's like a pit stop, right? If we didn't have these if we didn't have these moments of what do you call irrational exuberance,
You need
right?
speculation to drive innovation. That's just
Yeah, it brings
a
attention
foundation.
and a lot
I
of.
wanna-
Like,
I had words
I
coming.
wouldn't be in the position I am.
I had words coming, Jesse. You were like, "Fuck it."
Sorry.
I'm
Just go,
telling
go.
you what to say.
Go.
No,
Go.
it's
Sorry.
over
I did do
here.
that. I'm
You're
sorry.
absolutely right. What I was going to say was you need speculation to drive innovation. That's exactly no.
Yeah,
it wasn't-
I just knew that. I think
it
that's what
wasn't
you're
what-
going for, right?
That's exactly what I was leading to. I was
I'm
going
just
to be
gonna
long-winded,
condense it.
because it's a
Yeah, I know.
podcast. But I'll cut it
It's
short.
a podcast.
I'll get straight to the point. Then. No, I mean we need that, Corey. I know it sucks because you live in it and you build it, and it becomes distracting, and it's like then all of a sudden 1,000 aunties are asking you like, "Hey, should I buy a fucking panda bear token? Should I buy a dingleberry
What about
nuts?"
Moonstick?
Yeah, what about and you're like, I
don't care.
you probably know more about that than I do. I don't give a fuck about that. But like, it's just that for like I said in the past, like we get these hyperbolic moments, and then 1% of the people stick around and start doing things that really matter every single time. I think this is like the third or fourth time I've seen it now, and we'll probably see it more, and it's just going to be more specialized and more specific to different chains now.
I mean, I gotta be real, right? I can't pretend that I'm some completely objective, haven't benefited or profited from this industry at all. Like,
Nobody can.
I'm in the position I'm in because I've profited off this industry.
Yeah. But that's what makes it.
I get to live the way I do and not care so much because I've been in it for so long and I've profited off the highs.
That's what makes it an industry. That's what makes it a market. That's what makes it. It's like people aren't down the street selling Ford F-150s for free because they fucking love it. No, they're selling Ford F-150s because it makes them money and they like it, and a little bit, I don't know, and they make a profit from it. From, I guess, profit, we'll put that in quotations because it is a salary, but they make money off of it, right? It's not like you don't just contribute to something if it's not going to benefit you in some way, shape, or form, unless you're like Gandhi. But anyways, let's get to the realness here. I wanted to segue into something that could be huge. It just came from the Slack, like literally while we were recording this. Apparently, you can launch a EVM compatible blockchain on Avalanche with just a JSON file now. So Patrick O'Grady, who's one of Avalanche's lead engineers, tweeted this out. And it's in the Avalanche channel of the Slack. By the way, if you haven't joined the Slack, I don't know what you're slacking for.
Ooh, well played.
Not for Jesse. Jesse is a stone.
No, sorry, I'm actually reading the post now.
Oh no!
Yeah, we both moved into the post.
So, I think I know. So here, let me put out my D knows a little bit of everything, but a lot of bit about nothing cap, and I think that means JavaScript object notation, JSON. Is that right? Is that what it means?
Sorry, what?
I just
JSON.
About JSON?
Is that what it means? Like JavaScript object notation?
Yes.
Dope. So I know a thing or two. I've been around the fucking block. So we're not.
I think it's notation. Let's look.
I think it's. Hope it's notation, or else I'll just look like an idiot. But I look like an idiot on top.
It's JavaScript object something.
You're right. It's JavaScript object notation.
Yeah.
Look at you, D.
Boom. And I like to think of it as human readable code because I can look at stuff and I'm like, oh, I know what that means. So, anyways, what are we getting at? So that's kind of a big deal because JSON files are everywhere. In fact, I used to use some JSON files in my everyday job.
It says proof of authority subnets. Colin caveated it.
Proof of authority subnets.
Yeah, then it's not like a full-on subnet. It's a permission subnet.
Yeah.
So,
but so what? I mean, XDAI is a proof of authority subnet.
I was about to say XDAI for that.
It's not a subnet; it's a sidechain. So, but like, it's in all reality, like doing one of these is better than the security of XDAI.
Yeah. Oh, and hats off to the podcast foo of the Subnet podcast, which is basically an Avalanche show, but look, that's some good foresight to have that name on what's probably going to pop off in the subnets of Avalanche if it gets pulled off correctly. So hats off to you. It's good show too. So I don't really have anything more to add to today's show. I like that. I wanted to get some death. Sorry for hopping out there. I had to take care of some business. I had to get my dog up and running. So but I don't know. I don't have anything more to add to today's show unless y'all want to keep it going.
No, I'm
Yeah,
good.
I think he has to go
Do some
shut
shout
some
outs.
people up.
Should we do some shout outs? Hold up. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to say.
They got heavy.
Before we do our
I like that.
I mean,
so
I'll
we
do
have
that
a
all
jobs
day.
channel.
It's like a hash out show.
We have a jobs channel and people post their jobs in there. But that's not gonna be free anymore. So if you want to post your job ads in there, DM me Fergalati in the Slack and I'll give you your pricing and you can post your jobs in there to whatever detail you like.
Ooh,
And we'll work out the sales on that.
it's going to be a jobs newsletter.
I don't understand why we would have a free job board. That's silly,
Because
right?
it's our community.
We need to have
people go.
but we need to have a spam filter. And the spam filter is if the job's valuable enough, you'll pay to get in front of the people that could do the job.
I'm not seeing a lot of spam in the jobs filter. These are all legit jobs.
Yeah, but if that gets popular, I want to make sure there's a spam filter there called "Pay Me."
You try to get paid.
So yes, we are. Why not? Right? And if
Take a sponsor, get a sponsor from Liquor Box, get paid.
We are working on sponsors.
We're definitely living off sponsors from the first year we ever did this. So like,
yeah,
let's get a couple more.
Yeah, let's get some more shit. If we know that 1 year's worth of sponsorships last 10. Let's get some more sponsorships. So fuck it. We are working on sponsorships.
You want to be a sponsor? You want to be a sponsor of the show? Hit us up. We'll vet your product pretty hard. And if we like it or don't care, then you'll probably be a sponsor.
Absolutely. You know, we got some sponsorship chops. I'll be a little more, a little less, little more PG. There we go. And we do have a deck. We can send it over to you if you are interested in being a sponsor. Our audience is. You'll get to know our audience if you join the Slack. Go to thebitcoinpodcast.com, push the button that says Slack, follow the instructions. If you can't do that, we don't want your money and we don't want to be involved with you if you can't follow those steps, right? Because we don't want you're somebody we want to associate with, all right? And I mean that when I say it. So anyways, let's get into the things. We do lots of things. That's Patreon. You can become a patron and then you get access to the tiers of being a patron. There's patronage involved. I really feel like I should research what those tiers are because sometimes I say these things and like I want to be able to give somebody incentives to become a patron, and I'm just like, just go sign up. You can read. You got to
support the show. You might get something. That's it. Let's just support the show. You might get something. You definitely get a on a certain level tier. You get a select channel in the Slack that no one else gets access to except for patrons, which gets actually quite a bit of alpha, to be honest. I'm surprised how much stuff goes through that channel.
Actually, yeah.
Whole lot of alpha leaks in the Patreon.
Shout out to
channel.
Andy for providing alpha, for, like invites to conferences and stuff.
Mm-hmm. He's still gonna do it.
Yeah.
Little's Law.
Dude,
That's way. Uh-oh. We gotta get that out of here. That was a long time ago.
Clicking messages from 30 minutes ago.
I think that was an accident.
Oh, there's comments. Wait, what?
Yeah, there was lots of
We've
comments.
been doing this for a while, guys.
No. I was in the private chat tab. I didn't look at the comments. All right, who's Luciano Ropero? Is that
he is a listener and a watcher? So
yeah.
Oh,
he said this. Then he said that.
He said that.
All right. Then he said this when you were talking about that.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Right. And then he said this.
We get it, guys. People can look at chat history.
All right.
Said that.
All right. We already said everything about Slack. Oh, yeah. we got a pretty rad bad review last week.
Bad review.
Yeah, it was like a 2-star, and they were like, "Hey, these guys pretty much just suck at everything, life included. They don't talk about Bitcoin. They only talk about shit coins, and they don't know what they're talking about." And I was like, "Those are the ones that we love."
If you listen to this show, then it's very clear we have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, we don't know shit about crypto.
I don't know anything.
We just started this shit like 3 days ago, as you can tell. Like, no, I'm kidding.
I think there's NFTs.
Yeah, what is this? Non-fungible token? What is fungibility?
Fungible. It doesn't have any like fungi on it.
Yeah, there's no fungi on these tokens.
Like fresh means it's not decaying.
Shout out to let's do some shout outs and let's wrap it up. Shout out to Olivia Munn. You know, you helped the NFL forge a great Aaron Rodgers, one that's impenetrable, right? You made him emotionally intelligent, and now he's winning Super Bowls. So shout out to you, Olivia Munn. And you got knocked by this dude, so you're winning, right? Olivia Munn, she goes from Aaron Rodgers to oh man, what's this?
John Mulaney.
John Mulaney, right? Voice of Spider Pig, right? So, you know, shout out to me with a haircut. Shout out to Adele, who, you know, has a great marketing team because never
She
once
has
in my
long
life.
nails. You saw her recent video? Her nails are like extra. It's weird.
That's what I'm saying. How do you know that? Her marketing team is amazing. Every time she farts,
How do I know that?
I hear
Because
about
my wife likes Adele. We watch music videos a lot. It's a very simple.
anything this
person.
woman does. I know about it. I don't even like her that much, and I'm probably sure I just pissed someone off by saying that. Like every time she makes a song, it's even on hip hop radio stations. I'm like, damn, this woman can market. Whoever can market her is doing a damn good job. Shout out to this guy. You know, he tried Cowboy Bebop, didn't work out for him. I don't even know why you would agree to do that. Jesus.
I liked it.
You like it? That's good.
That's the other. It's a black dude in Cowboy Bebop.
That's Jet Black. Shout out to him. You know, classy guy.
What's his name? Jet Black?
Well, Jet Black and Cowboy Bebop. His name is not Jet
okay,
Black.
okay.
You know.
What's his name?
Man, I wish I knew.
Actor of Jet Black.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes. Portrayal. And there's Bears. That's all we got. You guys got anything? Shout outs? Nothing?
Holler. Going to North
Right.
Carolina. You live in North Carolina, hit me up.
Play the outro. Which button is it?
In broadcast.